Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Excellent Way. I am Brandon Garcia, aka Coach B, and on today's episode, it is a little bit longer. I do want to warn you about that, but I have a great conversation with my friend Natalie, who is sort of a CrossFitter. She participates in something called street parking, which is CrossFit-ish, but it's built for people who can't really get to a gym, or maybe they live somewhere where there's not really a CrossFit gym, and so they've had to build at-home gyms, and they write programming and coach and all of that stuff, people who work out at home. And they've built a really great community and a really great program. But Natalie brings up a really great conversation based around kind of this body image question. A lot of times what you see in CrossFit are the top end athletes. And of course, those top end athletes are ultra fit. And so when you start talking about the look of fitness, what does that look like? How do you get there? And what does that have to say about the CrossFit community? Is that a goal? Is that where we're headed? Or are we just trying to be fit? So we just have some great conversation around that and talking about what is it with body image in CrossFit, and is it different than anything else? So without further ado, here's my conversation with Natalie. For this episode of The Excellent Way, I have Natalie, and you live in Lyman?
Lyman,
Kansas. Is basically Kansas. Yes, basically Kansas. And she does something called street parking, which is kind of like, the best way I can describe it, is CrossFit at home, right? So like if you have a little bit of gear, or all the gear, or no gear, there's at least something to do that's not on the couch. Right.
We have a lot of members that actually only have like one pair of dumbbells, and then they kind of work around whatever they can with everything else.
Mm-hmm. And Natalie and I know each other through street parking, and we occasionally host meetups for you guys, although the vid has prohibited that. But anyway, so in the discussion for the Facebook question that I asked, you brought up a great point that I think you kind of made in jest, but it's still a good conversation to have. And so I'll kind of let you bring that up, and then we can just kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So my comment was that people who do CrossFit look like, Catherine David Sauter or Matt Frazier, or they're just like, hulked out, just super like lean, in shape people. And it's just funny because like I think that comment obviously was partly joke, but also partly pretty serious, just because like, so my background is actually not CrossFit. So I got into fitness mainly because I played very competitive sports all the way from like fourth grade all the way up until high school, volleyball, basketball, pretty much any sort of sport. I was the girl in high school, like in my off period, I was in the gym joining like the gym class. Like that's just how I've always been. And so when I got out of high school and kind of grew up or whatever, I started bodybuilding, thanks to one of my friends, Taylor, who kind of got me into that because he was a coach. And so I did like bodybuilding, just like general weightlifting for probably like 3 or 4 years. And then what really got me into CrossFit, and it actually wasn't CrossFit, it was street parking, which is like 4 years ago. I had gotten into the academy, and I wanted something that would get me cardio into shape, and then also kind of tone me up a little bit. And around that time when Instagram still had the explore page, Miranda, she used to be Oldroyd, but now she's Outcross, popped up on the explore page, and I had seen that she and Julian were starting the street parking, and basically it was like they gave a military and law enforcement discount. And so I was like, oh, that's cool, I'll try it. So I signed up, and when I signed up, I was like number 476 or something like that. So it was real small. OG. Yeah.
Because they're at
30,000. Yeah. There's a lot of freaking people now.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of how I got into CrossFit. The first time I did real CrossFit was going to your and Marcus gym.
Oh yeah.
That was the first time I had ever been in a box, had ever actually done CrossFit. So, and obviously you guys are awesome, which is why if we didn't live 2 hours that way, I'd definitely be with you guys. But I think I was always intimidated by CrossFit. because, you know, I'd watched like the Redeemed and Dominant, and then like, you know, like the CrossFit films. And so my idea, and then just like Instagram and just social media, my idea had always been CrossFitters are like just, and they just hardcore. Yeah. And they, you know, and they're all super lean and just super athletic. And like, if you do CrossFit, you're hardcore. Like that was always my perception of it. And so it was weird, especially joining street parking, because you look at Miranda and you look at Julian, and they are very exceptionally fit people because they both have been in the games. I mean, so there's also that, again, you see these top tier athletes and you just assume like, well, if I do CrossFit, like I can't hang. Like,
right. No, and it's like, dude, back in the day, like she's not as like hardcore about it anymore, but back in the day, like Miranda, dude, she was a BA. She was legit. Yeah. She had, I always used to joke, because I've been a huge fan of CrossFit for a long time, but like I wanted her shoulders. That's what I wanted. She had the most badass shoulders that I'd ever seen. I was like, I want her shoulders.
Yeah. So like when you look at, you know, the creators of a lot of, you know, different platforms and stuff, and then specifically, you know, CrossFit box owners and stuff, I think because when you get into CrossFit, no matter like what your fitness level is, there's always kind of that like, oh, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say indoctrination, but like, I feel like we all have a tendency to really get wrapped up in like the whole of CrossFit. So like you start going and you could be like, you know, super out of shape, never been athletic, been, you know, hundreds of pounds overweight, and you can walk into a box and you start, you know, kind of getting together with people, and you modify and you do what you can do. And I think it really kind of like the community of it really gets you into it. So the next thing you know, you're like, oh, well, let's try like the nutrition. And then, you know, next thing you know, and it's like, here, we're going to do this and this and this. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're 5 years deep and you're just like, well, I've lost, you know, 40, 50 pounds or whatever. And so I think people look at CrossFit and they think that it's like an all or nothing type thing. And I think also CrossFit just works for a lot of body types, to be honest, because it's, you know, the mix of like cardio and then also, you know, a lot of strength training, because it is weights that we're moving. And so I think that's why it gets the reputation of like, you're, you know, Billy Badass. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss.
I just did it too, CrossFit. So I guess we're okay. But no, you bring up, I mean, that's a good point to bring up too, is that like when people first come into CrossFit, they come into it because they either saw something like the films, right? The documentaries that are on Netflix, the Redeemed and Dominant, the some of the other films that they have out there now. I can't think of their names.
I know, that's blank.
Names, yeah. And so they either saw that or they saw the games on like ESPN or something. So they saw the elite of the elite. Like that's one thing.
Or even just social media. I mean, you're on Instagram, you're going to see a CrossFit athlete.
Yeah.
I mean,
and what people forget is those people are the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. It's the top 50 fittest men and women on the planet, right? This is literally their full-time job. Like Matt and Tia, the defending men's champion and the defending women's champion, and even so, you brought up Catherine David's daughter. She's a two-time female champion. She took second this year. Like their entire life revolves around the CrossFit Games and fitness. Yeah. So they train 4 to 8 times a day. It's their whole life. Every ounce of food that goes into their body is meticulously measured and calculated, and they're the extreme, right? But they also represent a part of what we all want. Is we want that capacity, we want that ability, but then also, like you're bringing up, like we also kind of want to look like that, you know, like
I'm not going to say no if I look like Catherine. Like, right? I'm not going to be upset about it.
We all want to. That's what we want. So we get into fitness because we want to look like that, or we want to do the things that fitness brings. You know, And so like you have those two, so you got introduced to it through the games, or, whoa, I just knocked the table. You get introduced to it from like that friend, like you brought up, like you have a friend that lost 50 pounds at CrossFit. Like, well, if they did it, I think I can do it. And so like you get drawn in by those people who come from a very zealous place because of it changed their life from a profession, or it changed their life from like a health and fitness and wellness standpoint. And so those people, you're right, they do get very zealous. I mean, I actually did an interview with one of our current members who her thing was all of her family members are like, isn't that a cult? Isn't CrossFit a cult? And so we joke like, kind of, yeah, it is a little bit. I mean,
it's funny because everybody, like when they meet me, they're like, why do you have keys on everything? Because, it's a street parking logo. Like I'm usually wearing something with a key on it. My phone usually has a street parking key. The car has like several of them. And like, I've got water bottles and like merch and all kinds of stuff. And everybody that meets me, they're like, what is the key? Like, I don't know. Why are you covered in keys? Don't ask questions.
Now come to my garage and work out with me. No, and I think that zealousness comes from a good place, but I mean, often we as humans don't do that zealousness well with other people who don't understand it. You know? And so I think that can be intimidating, but I also like, and really what kind of triggered my thought process in this is that people see the body types of the elite and they're like, now you become like obsessed with that. And so then like, what does that do with body image of where we're at versus where we want to be? And like that's a broader discussion that I think, people look at the elite CrossFitters and think that, well, if you do CrossFit, this is what you look like.
Yeah. I don't think people realize how much goes into looking like that.
Right. They don't. And coming from a bodybuilding background like you do, like, like to be that lean, the level of meticulous counting of your nutrition is way more important than any of the other workouts that you're going to do.
Oh yeah. And it's kind of funny because I tell Eric, because, I had shoulder surgery actually a year ago tomorrow. And because of that, I stopped working out or whatever. And then I got really lax on my food. So I gained 60 pounds. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, It's just how it goes. And like the problem with somebody like me, I understand what needs to be done to get back to the fit that I was. Like, I know the steps, I know, the nutrition, I know better. But I'm just going to be honest right now, I've been lazy. Like and so it's kind of funny, being somebody who has that kind of knowledge, and having people ask me about it, but then I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, I'm a little pudgy right now. So I don't know if they're going to, quite believe me, but.
But you bring up, that's a good point. Like, I think that for the most part, all of us know what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Whether or not we actually do it or even want to do it is its own issue, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, did I have to come home last night and eat a piece of cake? No, but did I? Yeah, I did. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no. And it's like, I think the point that you made that's good is that like people see that and they think, well, if I start doing CrossFit, I'm just going to look like that. And what they don't realize is that other side of it. Like you don't realize, like, I have to be meticulous in basically every area of my life to get to that point. Because if I don't have my day planned out for all the things that I'm going to do, then now I can't really plan out my workouts or my food. And so now that comes off the rails. And like you said, like, you get home at the end of the night and you haven't eaten all day and there's cake on the counter. So I could make some chicken or I could eat the cake. I'm going to eat the cake, right? Every time. And it's CrossFit is one of those things that it bleeds into all those areas of your life if you'll allow it to. But then it's like, where's that tipping point where it's too much?
Yeah. It's interesting because like, especially with like street parking in particular, I don't know, I did that, but street parking in particular, I've seen some of our members who have gotten really into it because it's easy to. I mean, truly, it really is. And I think a lot of people don't realize that we've created like an online box feel.
Right.
And you take a look at somebody like Greg Schneider. So do you remember our first meetup where he was kind of pudgy? Like he looked like he was in shape, but he's a little pudgy. And now you look at him and he's this lean, clean,
up brother.
Right? But when you take a look at how long it's taken him to get there, and how meticulous he is with his eating habits, you know, it's like, well, you know, and that's the other thing people don't realize. Food is probably far more important than the workout. I mean, they do go hand in hand, but we hear it all the time. You can't outwork a bad diet, which I am the epitome of that right now because, you know, my food has been out of control, which is why, you know, I work out pretty much maybe 5 to 6 days a week, you know, hard CrossFit style workouts, but I eat like crap. So I don't see any progress. And, you know, and so I think when people look at CrossFitters, they're like, oh, all they do is work out for the games and then they're super fit. Well, when you start diving into it and you look at like a day in the life of Sarah Sigmundsdottir or, you know, a day in the life of Matt Frazier, a lot of their planning and time goes around meals.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's, I mean, to bounce back to Katrin, like, so her coach, Ben Bergeron, wrote a book a couple of years ago called Chasing Excellence.
I love that book. Top 5 favorite books. Love it.
Oh my gosh, great book. But in that book, he mentions how disciplined Katrin is. Like while she's in training, like she'll allow herself to go out to dinner with her friends, but she brings food that she's already pre-measured and has everything she needs. She won't eat dinner. Like she won't eat from the restaurant. She eats the food that she's brought. Because it's weighed, it's measured, and it's ready to go. Even though she's out with her friends. She's out with her friends, she's having a good time, but she's drinking water and she's eating food that she knows she has control over. That's how meticulous these people are. You know, and I think that's a piece, like you said, that you don't know is there unless you dive into like, okay, how are these people actually living? And to kind of your point with Greg, like how long did it take them to get there? This wasn't an overnight thing. This wasn't a, you know, they started CrossFit and 3 months later they were at the games, which is what a lot of people think.
No. Well, and the other thing too, you look at a lot of the people on the top of the leaderboard in CrossFit, they have backgrounds in fitness. Like Katrin came from a gymnastics background. So she had a lot of the muscle, you know, build already. Matt Frazier came from a Olympic weightlifting background. You know, and a lot of these top tier athletes have always been athletes. And I think people don't realize that, but it's also like, it's not impossible to look like them. It takes an incredible amount of discipline and work that a lot of normal people just don't have.
Right. Well, I think too, it's more the discipline side of it, right? Like we have so many stressors in life between work and significant others and kids and, you know, out external family. And then like we're involved in this, that, or the other project. And it's just like all of those stressors overwhelm us. And then we're like, oh yeah, but I was going to try and like, you know, lose 50 pounds. Like, I was supposed to do that, but then all these other things happened. And like, so then that discipline of like, you really wanted that to happen, but it ended up taking a back seat to other things. And so to be on that level, like that is your thing. Like the relationships with spouses and, you know, the rest of your family, like you have to have people in your life that understand like, this is my thing.
Oh yeah.
Everything else takes a back seat to it.
Well, and that's so hard too, because like personally, you know, so I did Jacked by June 2 years ago, was the first time so we do like yearly challenges with street parking. And they've got a couple nutrition ones or whatever. And the first one that we do in like each new year is called Jacked by June. And so street parking has like a nutrition template that you can purchase. And it's basically, it tells you what to eat, X, Y, and Z, maps out your servings by your weight class and like, male, female, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's very clean eating. It's easy. I mean, it's easy, obviously. Yeah. But it's funny because when I did Jacked by June, I brought my cooler to work with me with 3 meals in it. That's like 7 or 8 Tupperwares. Because, I'm at work 8 hours, 10 hours a day. And all of my coworkers are like, oh my God, she's eating again. Like, and it's,
Yep.
Yeah. And so, and I get it all the time from my coworkers, like, how do you eat so much, but you're not like obese or, morbidly overweight? And I'm like, well, if you look at what I'm eating as compared to, you're having a bag of chips, which is 280 calories. I had a full meal that's 220. But I think a lot of people also don't realize that it's easy to be motivated when you're around people who are motivated. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. So you go to CrossFit at night, you're at the box, you're with like you and Marco, where everything's like, yeah, we can do this. Let's get it. Nutrition, workout. We're awesome. Like, this is great. So you get home, you have a good like nutritional meal. You feel good. You get up, you go to work, you bring your pre-prepped meals, you go sit down, and your cube mate or, coworker is like, ew, what are you eating? Why are you eating healthy? I couldn't do that. You get all the comments from everybody and their mother. And then you're like, why am I doing this? And so I think it's so easy to get derailed because a lot of people don't understand that kind of the inner workings of how you get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And of course you get people too that just want you to fail because they're just terrible humans. But
and I think it's this, like, they have this belief that they could never do that. So if they can't do it, they don't think you should either.
Yeah.
We both know that that's not the case. Like, if they really wanted to do this, they could absolutely do this.
Yep.
They're just choosing not to.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because it's not a priority to them, or maybe they don't understand it, or whatever it is. But then they become that negative influence, and it makes it really hard, especially if it's somebody like important in your life.
So one of my last cadets that I had in FTO, like 3-4 people ago, I had buckled down because I was doing, I think it was Jacked by June, like 2 years ago. And the comments were, I could never do that. I can't do that. I can't eat vegetables. I can't drink that much water. Well, I'm like, you can. I mean, you can, but let's rearrange that and say what it actually is. You don't want to.
Right. Yeah.
Which is where I'm at right now. I don't want to. I'm just, I'm being honest with myself. I can do it. I just don't want to at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have that mindset, especially about fitness as a whole. And then that leads into people, not doing what they're supposed to do, but then looking for the quick fix.
Yeah.
She was always the one that's like, oh, I bought like a Stairmaster and I'm doing that. Or I started Beachbody, or every couple months she's got a new thing that she's doing, and it never works because she's not consistent. And then it's also like just the base level of like, she doesn't eat vegetables. She doesn't drink water. Like, you know what I mean? And so she can't understand why nothing is working. And I sat down with her and I told her, like, I can help you, but she doesn't want to do the hard things, which is why nothing changes. Yeah.
Well, I think that no matter what you choose, and we kind of started having this conversation before we hit record, was like, it doesn't matter what you choose. If your Stairmaster in your basement is your thing, like, good. If going to Planet Fitness or Jazzercise or CrossFit or Street Park, whatever your thing is, it's not going to be as successful as you want it to be unless you are consistent for a very long time. Right? Like, if you're consistent for 6 weeks, cool. That's not going to do anything. Yep. One of the conversations. So one of my very first obese clients with CrossFit, right? When she started, she was in her late 50s, and she got she was about 6 months in, and she'd only lost a little bit of weight. It was really frustrating, and I can understand that.
Oh yeah.
And I finally looked at her. I was like, hey, how long did it take you to get here? And she was like, pretty much 50 years. Like, she's like, since I was a kid. Like, I was like, okay, well, you have 50 years to lose the weight that you've gained over 50 years. I think that's fair, right? If it took you 10, 15, 20 years to gain the weight, it's only fair to yourself to give yourself 10, 15, 20 years to go back the other direction.
Oh yeah.
And I think that people, and the fitness industry is a culprit in this. Like, we send out these things. It's like, like, be fit in 90 days, lose the weight in 90 days,
Advocare 30-day challenge.
Right.
Like yeah.
Everybody thinks that they're going to lose 100 pounds in 30 days. It's like, that's not how this works.
But then you have people like me who know that, like, I know it, I understand it. But when I do buckle down, I get pissed when I don't lose 10 pounds in a week.
Yeah. Right.
Like, it's this constant battle of being smart, but still like, well, it should happen. Well, no, it's not going to like, it's not going to work out like that.
Bro,
like,
no, you know this, it's not going to work. But it's,
and,
I think that for, and I get to speak to this from a cool perspective, because I do this as a profession, but I've also walked that road of lose 10 pounds, gain 15, lose 15, gain 25, lose 35, gain 30. Like, I've walked that road. When I started back into fitness, because like you, I grew up as an athlete, and then I gained 70 pounds in 7 months and just kept it for 10 years. And then gained it. Exactly. Yeah. And it happens so fast. Why? But even when I started my own journey, like, I had a degree in exercise science. I was a certified personal trainer. I was a certified clinical exercise specialist. I know this stuff. And I was the same way. Like, I'd work out hard for 6 weeks and I'd lose like 10 pounds. And I'd be like, this is BS.
Yep. But I think that also goes to social media is a big part of it. I think, especially in the fitness industry, there's a lot of these expectations, especially from a lot of, like, in each type of fitness, whether it's like bodybuilding, CrossFit, any type of fitness, there's the expectation of, well, why don't you look like this in 2 weeks?
Right.
I mean, and nobody ever sees, like, it's the highlight reel. Social media is the highlight reel.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's ever going to take a picture when they're at 70 pounds overweight and pissed off and angry. And all they're going to post is like, yeah, good gym session. Yeah, good day. But they're not going to post a video like, yeah, instead of going, straight from work to the gym, I went home and ate a tub of chicken. Like, they're not going to post that.
No.
You know?
It's like, I stopped at KFC. After I left the gym.
Like, nobody posts that. They're going to post the highlight reel about, hey, I did great today. I lost 20 pounds. Yay me.
Right. And it's all, like, for lack of a better phrase, it's that sex sells, right? Like, we all want to look good in our bathing suits with our shirts off. We want to be that guy or that girl, that's the fitspo, hashtag fitspo. Right. In our little pose. Yeah. Everybody's like, oh, I want to look like that guy. I want to look like that girl. And, like, so then the expectation is, I want to look like that next week.
Yeah. There was this girl on TikTok I saw that she used to be like one of those Fitspo type model chicks who was very skinny. She had a little bit of muscle, but was just mainly known for being skinny. And she actually has taken a TikTok she goes through her Instagram past posts. And there was one that I just happened to see, and it was like, she's like, oh yeah, I look great here. She's like posing, holding like one of those acai bowls, and she's, all like done up and everything. And she's like, what this post doesn't tell you is I hadn't eaten solid food in 6 days. Yeah. She's going through her, because she actually had admitted she got an eating disorder, and put herself through rehab and everything. So now she's taken to social media to really deconstruct what her persona was. And I think it's really helpful for people to see that, because they don't realize, yeah, she's got abs that are poking out, but what did she do to get those?
Mm-hmm. And that's rarely the question, right? We just, as humans, we want to look like that. It's that body image. Like, I want that body image. And if I don't have that body image, then, what's my worth?
Yeah.
And I think that's the question that we often missed out on, is what did that person do to get to that point?
Yep.
And we all want the trick. We all want the, I cut out water and salt and, ate rice cakes for the last 6 days. We don't ask those questions. We just want to look like that and expect that we're going to look like that all the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. So recently, in the street parking group, I think probably like a month or two ago, somebody kind of sparked have you heard about the 75 hard thing?
I've done it twice.
Yeah. So it got sparked in the group. So there's a bunch of people who wanted to do it. And it turned into this real big thing, and Miranda and Julian had to get involved, because like there were people that were getting pissed because they couldn't finish it, because life happens. I'm sorry. Like 75 hard was designed by military people, wasn't it? Or I don't remember, but the basis of it is like, you have to be like mechanical about getting it done. And there are no excuses. I get it. Like, I understand the premise of it, but it turned into a thing because like regular people were not completing it. And so there was a lot of kind of like whining or upset, hurt feelings and stuff like that. And they were, it kind of was bringing down the whole group because people were kind of upset about it, which I get, things like that are tough for a reason. But Miranda actually came out and was like, instead of 75 hard, I want you to do a 365 moderate, where she laid out her own rules of, try to work out every day, rest when you need to rest, eat veggies, drink water. She's like, do that for 365 days and tell me how much more progress you made than the 75 hard.
Right.
Because Miranda's whole thing is consistency is key.
It is.
Because if you're like this, you're not going to see results. But if you stay here, you're going to eventually see results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's 75 hard one that's a hard one, because what's happened is, unfortunately, so it was designed by a guy named Andy Frisella. He's the CEO of First Form. And
that makes sense.
He interviewed a guy named James, I can't remember his name, but this guy, he's known as the Iron Cowboy. He did 50 Ironman triathlons in 50 states in 50 days. The dude is insane. Yeah. And so Andy interviewed this guy for his podcast, and he came away from that going, I can do so much more and I need to do more. This Andy Frisella has one of the most successful supplement companies on the planet. Yeah. And he's like, I need to do more. Mm-hmm. And so he designed the 75 hard challenge to push himself. And then he said, hey, if you guys want to do it with me, this is what I'm doing. But you need to understand, this is not about fitness. This is about mental toughness. Can you do this and be a mentally tough person? And the fitness industry that he's connected to, the people who aren't in the First Form family, who don't know him, who don't understand him, they just saw he did 75 hard and they grabbed hold of it and turned it into a fitness challenge, right? His whole point of this, and there's more to just the 75 hard, it's actually a year-long program.
Yeah.
That has more pieces to it. But his whole thing is like that whole conversation of consistency just on steroids.
Yeah.
Like that's really what he was after.
Yeah.
But it goes back to this conversation. Like, we have this expectation of ourselves to be there to do that, but we're not looking at what it takes to actually do it. We're not looking at the pieces that go into that and the time that goes into that. Yeah. Because we want the result because it looks cool.
Yeah. It was funny because I saw like the original post about it, and I kind of, read the bullet points, and I was like, nope, I'm out. I'm doing it.
Nope.
I'm going to be honest. It's just like, and that's the thing. Again, I could do it. Like if I buckled down, I could do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. That's the difference. And again, just
the honesty of that statement is what most people need to find out how to say.
Yeah.
Right. Like I could do that.
I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Right. I want that result. I don't want to do the things it takes to get that.
Yep.
If you can be honest about that, then it goes right along with what Miranda was saying. It's like, dude, you don't have to be that crazy. You don't have to be the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Mm-hmm. You can just be a normal human who takes care of their body and be healthy, and it's fine.
Yep. Yeah, it's far more complicated than people think. And I think also, the whole CrossFit, like, view that people have of it who are outside of it, because I get told I'm crazy all the time because people have seen, my workouts on Instagram and stuff when I used to post them. Coworkers and stuff of mine were like, they always tell me, oh, she does crazy stuff in the gym. And I'm like, it's not crazy. It's just a different type of working out. But they tell me that all the time because they're, intimidated by what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think unfortunately too, CrossFit there for a little while really had this perception, or people had perception of it, of being hardcore. And I know, several people who tried CrossFit and went to gyms that were not very nice gyms, mm-hmm. Or boxes. And they ended up getting soured from CrossFit they don't even want to try it again because they had such a terrible experience with the coaches and the people there, because it was a toxic type box where it was ultra competitive and it was ultra, I got, however many, muscle ups, or I got this or whatever. And then you get Joe Schmo walking in like, I can't even do a pull up, mm-hmm. And then they were made to feel bad about it. And so then they're like, why would I even want to stick around here? And I think, and this is a whole other tangent about how, Greg Glassman is trying to redefine CrossFit, with like the functional fitness aspect. I get why he went there, because it did get very cultish for a while. And it did get that like perception, or, of like, you have to be super fit to do CrossFit. Yeah. But that's not the point of it. You know what I mean? No. Like I was actually kind of scared to go to your box the first time because I'd never met you guys. I never knew what you guys were about. Right. But then I went and I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, you guys are awesome. You and Marka are great people. You're like super fit. And so it's intimidating because you look at you and you're like, oh my God, like this guy is going to Hulk out and like rip off his shirt and be like, PR or something, But then like, you guys are very accepting and you're like, hey, if this doesn't work for you, let's try this. And like, you work with your members to really get them to get the best workout they can, but at their ability level.
Yeah. Well, and
but they're not bad about it either, which is, I think, the biggest part of it.
Yeah. And I think that, like, if you go back to the original statements Glassman made when CrossFit started to expand beyond his first gym, right? The statement that stuck with me that made me shift from being like a normal trainer to CrossFit was, he said, listen, the needs of our Navy SEALs and our grandmothers differ in degree, but not in kind. And so you should be able to, and he's made this point multiple times, like through the years, is like, you should be able to have, high level athletes and first responders and, military in your gym in the same class as your grandma and your grandpa, and they all leave better than when they came in, and they're supporting one another. And I think that some of the early perception of CrossFit being that hardcore was because it was easier to get the tip of the spear into something like that. Right. Yeah. If I'm showing you how to pick up a heavy deadlift or do a snatch or a clean and jerk, if you're a law enforcement or you're in military or you're a former athlete, that's an easy sell. If you're the mid-40s soccer mom who wants to get fit and the CrossFit is the popular thing, that's scary.
Yeah.
you know? And so what ended up happening was early on, CrossFit was the elite. And it had that, you're right, it had that perception of this is a broed out, fit chicked out, like hardcore gym.
Yep.
And as we've progressed, the gyms, and this is another thing Glassman said, look, long term, the gyms that do this well are going to survive. The gyms that don't are going to die. And it's been, and COVID has proven this true. The gyms that have done a great job taking care of their people and keeping them on their fitness journey, no matter where they're at, have been the gyms that survive.
Yep.
You know, whereas like those hardcore competitive, like muscle up or die kind of gyms, they haven't survived. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting to see, especially in street parking, because I've been a member since basically the beginning. As of right now, because of COVID, again, we have attracted so many people because it is stuff you can do at home. And there's so many more options for programming now than when I started. Like, it just blows my mind that it's only $20 a month, but that's besides the point. The point is we actually, when we gain new members, you can tell who came from a box like yours and Marcus, where it was very like, yeah, you got this, you did it. Like you did, you know, it's a new PR. It might not be like crazy high number, but it's a PR for you. It's amazing. You did well, like good job. And then you get members who came from a box who were better, faster, harder. That wasn't good enough. You better do this. And the leaderboard, and that's a no rep. And I was watching a video and you didn't stand all the way up, so it doesn't count. And it's been a constant battle to watch these people kind of butt heads on the page, because it's like, you know, yesterday there was a post about, you know, somebody not standing all the way up on their box jumps. And so it was a no rep, so it didn't count. And like, you need to do it better. But it's like, they're doing this at home. They are not from a CrossFit background. It's not a competition. It's not your workout. So shut up. I mean, honestly, you know, and like, and that's how I feel about it. And I'm like, and this is why people leave gyms, because if they're like Joe Schmo, who's never done this, and you get somebody who's like, that didn't count, regardless of the fact that it was a great workout, it demoralizes them. So they don't want to do it, because it's like, I'm just going to get made fun of or pointed out that I did it wrong. So why would I continue doing it? And it's just interesting to watch these two types of people kind of converge on each other in a big group like street parking. You know, and we got a whiteboard with Wattify. And most of the time right now, because there's 30,000 members, it won't load. But when it does, there's always the people that are like, I saw that they marked RX or RX plus, but they modified. That's not RX. And it's like, who cares?
Who cares? That's, I mean, and it like, I think that this is all like part of that conversation of like the perception of CrossFit, right? And like, we become our own worst enemy, you know, like we eat each other from within. And so you have those people that I'm just trying to not gain another 30 pounds. Like, that's all I really want to do right now.
Leave me alone. Like,
leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
But then you have the, like, and this is where like this idea of coaching comes in. And like, it's like one of the conversations I'm going to have is, why is CrossFit so expensive? Well, it's because you're paying for a coach. And if you're paying for a good coach, they're going to know how to mitigate that conversation between those two types of people.
They're not going to allow it, essentially.
Well, it's not even that. Like, one of the things that we've learned, because when we started, I started kind of in the early part of CrossFit, where it was like, everybody was there to go to the games. Like, that's why you were in CrossFit. You were there to go to the games, end of list. Right. And we've evolved into this gym where, like, dude, I want people to be fit. I want people to be healthy. Like, hey, I can't do 100 pounds today. Cool. Let's do 20. I don't care. I just want you to move. You know, the coaches that are the best at what they do. And this isn't me, like, I don't mean to like shine my own shoes or anything like that, but like, what I have learned to do is, when we get those people into our gym, because we have them that are crazy fit. They are crazy fit.
Yep.
Good coaches will come alongside of those kinds of athletes, those kinds of clients, and be like, hey, these people are not that. And so we need to, like, when you hammer down a workout and you're the first one to finish and you did the most weight and the most reps and all this other stuff, you need to be willing to go over and give them a high five and say, good work, good job showing up today, way to hit like your PR. Like, it's the coach has to have that conversation with that group of people, right? Like you're the inspiration, you're the influence, you're where people want to be.
Yeah, don't be a dick about it.
Right. And then also on the other side of that, you have to be willing to have the conversation with those other folks that like, hey, I know you really don't feel like doing 100 pounds today, but I know you can. So we're going to try to do that. And then when they get down on themselves,
that line.
They'll get down on themselves like, oh, I can't do that like he's doing it or like she's doing it. Like be like, that's okay, because you're going to push your envelope today. What does your envelope look like? Let's push your envelope like that.
Yeah.
And being willing to push that brink, because there's going to be a day where the inspiration, they're going to have a bad day. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be the reason they finish a workout, because they look over at you and you're crushing it. Yeah. Because you were willing to show up today. Yeah. Even though you're 30 pounds lighter than they are on the weight, or you're doing whatever scaled version, like they're still going to look at you and go, dude, they're going like heck. I better pick it up.
Yeah. You know? And it's actually funny you mentioned that, because so in street parking, especially now, I'm not fit by any standard, because we have people who are just exceptionally, like, you just watch them go in their videos and you're like, they got washboard abs and they're RX plusing. And mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm just kind of fat panda, just kind of moving, like I'm doing the thing. But like, it's funny because in street parking, I kind of feel like the scale, and I'm kind of probably more middle-ish. I can go when I need to go. Sometimes I can RX plus, and sometimes I, regular RX, and sometimes it's shift, because, it just depends on how I'm feeling. But like the last few times when I was there for training, and, I went to your guys' gym, I was top of the leaderboard, which kind of made me laugh, because it was like, I'm used to being like mid panda, who just kind of there, who's not really, at the end, but it's not really at the top. But then I go to a box where there's only like 12 people in a class. I was more towards the top, and I was like, this is weird. But it wasn't made to be pointed out or anything, which was really nice, because, I know the girl that I was paired with when we did that wall ball, rowing deadlift. Yeah. She, was making comments about how I was such a beast and how I was so good and everything. And I was just kind of like, it was weird for me, because I'm not that person normally. So when I get into a situation where people view me as the top tier, it was so odd for me, but I made sure to make her also feel like she was doing really well. So when I was counting her reps and stuff, and I was like, yeah, you got this, you're going, and just being like the cheerleader, because I know how easy it is to be intimidated by the person who is, better than you. And I think it depends on the kind of person you are too. Because I think it is easy for somebody who, like you, who are very fit, or Miranda and Julian, to be like, oh, I'm the best, I'm the fittest. Yeah. But you're not, because there's no point, and you guys don't have egos that need to be fed. And so I think it just really depends on the kind of people you're around, because you could be around really fit people who are assholes, or you could be around really fit people who are great people. Yeah. And it's not even just CrossFit, it's any type of fitness community,
that's the big point that I think people like. CrossFit has a reputation of having more of the kind of a-holish people, when in reality, it just depends on what realm you're in, it happens. So like when I was training in a normal Globo gym, we had a lady came in and she taught Zumba, and she was some like elite instructor for Zumba and like all this other stuff. She had all these like upper echelon like stuff. And she had that same kind of like almost arrogance about her. Like if you didn't understand, like, and so like it exists, I think anywhere, but I think it's more, it shows more in the fitness industry because of, our tendency towards vanity in the fitness industry. Like it's easy to be like really rub it in your face about it.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that it's like, as people chase those kind of like body images and those body types and things like that, if I do CrossFit, I'll do that. The people who are leading the way have to be willing to check their egos and then remind their fans and their community, like, hey, this is not what it's about. Like what it's about is being fit and being healthy and taking care of yourself and being in a good mental space. Because if you're trying to chase this aesthetic, but you're in a bad mental place, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I use it all the time at the bodybuilder industry, more specifically. You know, the bigger the bodybuilder gets, usually the bigger the head gets as well. You know, and it's true. I mean, and then it's fine because I think it is easy to get your ego inflated when people are looking at you as like this more than man type thing because of the things that you've achieved, you know. And it's funny to just kind of see comparatively, you know, people who have it but are more humble about it, and then people who have it who are, you know, more arrogant about it. And it's just interesting to see how they deal with it. And that's the same thing. Any gym is like that. Like you take like a Planet Fitness is the one end of the spectrum for like bodybuilding, but then you go to like a meathead gym, you know, that is full of, you know, pro card holders and are like super fitness. You walk in there as a Planet Fitness member, you're going to feel like shit. I mean, it just is. I mean, that's just how it is. But then you also get these members who walk into a Planet Fitness who get kicked out because they're obnoxious, you know? Yeah. So it's just, I think it's, you find a place that's good for you. And I think it's unfair sometimes when somebody has a bad experience with one type of gym and then just discredits the whole type of community because one place sucked.
Right.
I get it though. I mean,
that's a killer observation, is that, like, you know, especially in the world of fitness, like, and as micro gyms, like our gym would be considered a micro gym, right? Like we're not a chain Globo gym, right?
Yeah.
And so in the world of micro gyms, like every gym has its own flavor. So if you went to CrossFit ABC, it's not going to be the same as CrossFit 123. It's not. There's going to be some similarities, but it's not going to be the same. And that's why there's so many, and why so many of these gyms can kind of live and exist with, I mean, just within our community here, like within a 5-mile radius, I think there's 9 CrossFit gyms. And that doesn't even include all of the boot camps and the, you know, Zumba and F45 and Fit Body Boot Camp and
Jazzercise down the road.
Jazzercise literally three units over. Like that doesn't, I'm just talking about CrossFit gyms. Yep. I think there's either 7 or 9 within a 5-mile radius of our gym. And we're all like, we do great and we communicate with each other and we all have our own flavor and our own culture and our own way we run our gyms. And it's, when you're searching for that thing, like you saw the body type and you're like, I think I want to look like that. You've got to find the community and the group of people and the coaches that are going to get you there. Yeah. And just because you have a really crappy experience at one gym doesn't mean you're not going to go down the street to the next CrossFit gym and have you could have a great experience there. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think you have to be willing to spend the time to find out where you fit.
I also think sometimes too, is it comes down to the, like, I can, but I don't want to, but the people that are, I can't, you know, that's where it ends. It makes me wonder sometimes if they're looking for the excuse to not do it. Does that make sense? So like somebody like me, you know, it took me several different things before I found what worked for me, you know, bodybuilding, one-on-one coaching. I tried a regular, like, there's a whole list of things that I've tried. But I essentially wanted to get fit and wanted to find something that worked for me. So when I did have a bad experience, for me, because I wanted it, like I knew what the end goal was, it wasn't, oh, well, now I'm just going to do nothing because that was a bad experience. It was, let's find a different version of it that might work for me. But somebody who is not athletic and not looking for the end goal, they just kind of have it in their mind that they want to get in shape or something. They go to a gym and have a bad experience. That's the end.
Yep.
Like, and it sucks because it also comes down to mental toughness. Like, how bad do you want it? And if you're going to let one tiny bad experience derail the entire thing, I mean, that's kind of on you, you know? It's also complex, and it's weird how humans work, but I mean, CrossFit specifically though, you know, it's so hard to find what works for you within CrossFit because it is so broad, but then finding the box or the coach or, you know, the people that you like, because there are so many gyms. I think it is easy for the general population to have one bad experience and be like, no CrossFit, no more CrossFit. CrossFit's bad. We don't do CrossFit.
Well, that's, you know, and I think to kind of like just land the plane on this, so we're not running over time too much, but is like, I really think that to that point is you have to decide, like, do you really actually want to be fit, or are you doing this because you know you're supposed to?
Yeah.
Like, and that's going to help you find where your fit is. But when it comes to CrossFit, like that perception of like, everybody looks like the games athletes, like Matt, like Tia, like Katrin, you know, that perception, I think people, if they're willing to spend some time checking out, you know, their local CrossFit boxes, I think they'll find that that's not necessarily the case. In fact, more CrossFit gyms have pulled 100 pounds off of people than have sent a person to their games. Most of the people in CrossFit are, you know, they're kind of normal fit. They're not elite echelon fit.
Yeah.
Right. And so like allowing that wall to come down a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to go try this out. And if I don't fit at this box, maybe I'll fit at this one. Like for me, like in my personal view as a 15-year fitness professional, CrossFit is the fitness gospel. They do it the best, period. Now, if you want other goals, if you want to be a marathoner, you want to be a cyclist, you want to be a bodybuilder, that's a highly specialized thing. If you just want general fitness, nobody does it better. And so I want people to be in the CrossFit box.
Yeah.
But that may not be your space. That may not be your place. And so I think that as people are searching like and questioning, should I try CrossFit? Don't let YouTube and Instagram and, you know, all of those social media-ish posts, don't allow those things to be the reason you don't.
Yep.
Let them be the reason that you do. Let them be the reason you go and try. Because you might walk into a box one day and like within a week, those people are your best friends and now your life is completely different.
Yep.
You know? And so if you're willing to let yourself do that and overcome all of the body image issues and the stereotype issues and all that stuff, like go by the wayside, you might end up getting your goal and not even realize it.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Well, thanks for having this conversation with me.
Yeah.
And thanks for bringing it up. And like, just, I like, this is just such good perspective for people to chew on. So